Hello there viewers, and welcome to another edition of F1 Talk. This is episode 39, and in this edition I will be going over the talking points and obviously the race results and updated championship standings after the Singapore Grand Prix that took place at the Marina Bay circuit just yesterday. And before things got underway, we were told that Bruno Senna of Williams had a 5-place grid penalty for a gearbox change. He crashed during qualifying, practice 3, practice 2 and practice 1, so he was having a good weekend before everything got started. And quite frankly, it wasn't going to be his week from the get-go. So he started off with a 5-place grid penalty, which basically left him with no chance of a decent finish this weekend. And you can easily tell that it's pressure season for drivers like Bruno, because things are all being shaped up for 2013. From now on, we will get the sort of, drivers trying to do their absolute best. Not that they don't do their best all of the time, it's just the fact that now drivers will absolutely try their 100% and put in tons more effort to get what they need for next year. So to the race now, and several drivers took avoiding action and went across the chicane at the first couple of corners to avoid collisions, things like that. A number of drivers, including Nico Rosberg of Mercedes and several others, I think Mark Webber, took avoiding action as well. This led to all of them being investigated by the stewards, but nothing came of that, thank God, because it wouldn't have been fair to penalise those drivers that had to avoid spins and things like that. So, but one of the unlucky drivers was Vitaly Petrov of Caterham. He just couldn't get out of the way quick enough, and he lost his front wing, and so he was in early, and that was about it for quite a while. The lap around the Marina Bay circuit takes about 1 minute 45 to 1 minute 55, depending on your fuel load, and the guys were just burning off the fuel, and nothing much happened until lap 23, when Lewis Hamilton retired from the lead with gearbox failure. His race engineer was heard over the radio saying, "Look, we did absolutely everything we could to stop this from happening, and we just couldn't." So basically, McLaren had a faulty car with Lewis all weekend, and he still managed to take the pole position on the Saturday. So it was a pretty good lap considering that. But like Button, Hamilton's chances of winning the championship are practically zero now, because you DNF a race, specifically the championship contenders. If you DNF a race, that's it, basically. So that's that, probably, for Hamilton. A good fight on track between Fernando Alonso and Pastor Maldonado. They were fighting over, at the time, I think it was second and third positions. Maldonado was having a cautious race. Obviously, he had been spoken to by Williams management as to the amount of finishes he's had. Next to Michael Schumacher, Pastor Maldonado is the one driver that has barely finished a Grand Prix this year. As we very well know, he won in Spain, Catalonia, in a brilliant performance. He got the pole position, he got the race win, but since then he's done absolutely nothing apart from crash into other cars. The guy's lucky to be in Formula 1, I actually think. And okay, Venezuela, where he comes from, practically sponsors the Williams team, I could see him leaving Formula One, although it would probably be his teammate to make way for the Finnish prodigy test driver that Williams have for next season. Can't quite remember his name offhand, but it's all to do with who's going to be driving for what team next season. On the same lap 33, Narain Karthikeyan of Hispania caused a safety car. There's a corner where you turn left to go underneath a bridge. It's a 90-degree corner. It's rather difficult, and on the tyres and in the car, plus the driver skill that he's got, Karthikeyan couldn't stop himself from hitting the wall, hit the right rear tyre, and that was the end of his race. And meanwhile, while all this was going on, Pastor Maldonado had to retire the car while the safety car was out with a hydraulics problem. Pretty unlucky for Pastor, who was looking for a decent points finish. I mean, at the time he was in third, I think it was. So that pushed Fernando Alonso up to third. So the safety car was out for about 4 or 5 laps, and we had an incident after the safety car went in between Michael Schumacher and Jean-Eric Vergne. Mercedes hit the Toro Rosso square on, took them both out, and you could clearly see that Michael had no chance of stopping the car. While the safety car was out, obviously tyre temperatures and brake temperatures go down, which means it's more dangerous when the race restarts. It's the same in all forms of motorsport. If tyres and brakes are cold, you've got to warm them up, and the Mercedes just didn't give Michael any chance. As a result of the crash, they both retired, Schumacher with yet another DNF, and I wouldn't be surprised if Schumacher retires from Formula One for good now, because of the fact that he's been given a 10-place grid penalty for Japan, which is the next race in about 2 weeks' time. The penalty, I personally think, is a little bit harsh. All right, I admire Schumacher for what he did for Formula One, and the mere fact he's won 7 world championships, but the fact that he's been given a 10-place grid penalty, I can understand 5. But 10 I think is a bit harsh, to be honest with you. If he broke, and the car telemetry says that, he did push the brake pedal to stop, and he physically couldn't because of cold brakes, tyres, whatever, then it's a racing accident. It wasn't intentional. If it was intentional, I can understand the 10-place penalty, but it's not. So that brought out the safety car again. Safety car came out and basically destroyed, Force India's chances of a podium finish, especially with Paul di Resta. He was looking rather good. They split their strategies. So when di Resta was on the option tyres, Hulkenberg was on the primes, the soft and the super soft. And, that's the thing I like about Force India at the moment. They are trying everything they possibly can to get the best points finish possible. And, 9 times out of 10, it's not getting big points finishes, it's just getting, 1s and 2s. But Paul di Resta was doing rather well. The safety car came out at the wrong time. It was pretty unfortunate for them, but not as unfortunate as the Saubers. Both Kamui Kobayashi and Sergio Perez lost their front wings on lap 50 in, just braking incidents. Kamui, who looks like he's feeling the pressure. I mean, he went out in Q1 on Saturday, being outpaced by his more F1 attractive teammate Sergio Perez. It looks like the pressure's getting to Kobayashi, as I say. Perez looks like he's going to be joining a big team next season. We don't know who yet, obviously. But both Saubers had to come in for new front wings. They did. They came out, obviously. Now, what happens when a safety car comes out on a street circuit like this is slows the cars down, as it does with all tracks. But at least with bigger and wider circuits, you can weave the car about, try and warm the tyres up, which is what they try to do. But the thing is, this particular race is always close to the time limit anyway. A couple of seasons ago, the FIA brought out a mandate where it says a race distance must be completed within 2 hours, or we go to 2 hour time limit. Yesterday we went to 2 hours because of the 2 safety car incidents, and we did 59 laps out of the 61. So 2 laps short. After Lewis Hamilton retired, it was left open for an easy win, really, for Red Bull's Sebastian Vettel. That's his second Singapore Grand Prix victory in a row. We didn't see much overtaking because of the nature of the track. The DRS was practically ineffective. And personally, I was actually disappointed come qualifying because of the fact that Singapore has signed a 5-year extension. So they will be hosting a Grand Prix until 2017. That disappointed me because these street circuit races are not exciting. The locations are always fantastic. Monaco's brilliant. Valencia is quite a decent location. It's on a marina, for heaven's sake. This one's called Marina Bay, and it's a nice looking circuit. It's the night time, you know. But it's not exciting. It's a procession. You barely get any passing. When you do, it's risky. Fernando Alonso has said that the racing goes on for too long. There's too many laps. It should be shortened to maybe 50, because, you know, they were about an hour and a half in and they had only done 30 laps. I mean, okay, the safety car came out, obviously, but they're very close always to the 2 hour time limit, even if they don't have a safety car. We had 2 yesterday. We had over 10 laps behind the safety car yesterday. And on commentary, they said that's not a sort of record that we want to see broken. We want to see fast racing. But it's not racing at street circuits, it just isn't. And the mere fact that they've got their contract extended for another 5 seasons just goes to show that whoever signs these contracts, whoever makes the decisions to go to race circuits, which I'm thinking is Bernie Ecclestone, doesn't care about racing. All he cares about is the dinero, the money, the cash, the moolah, you know. So Vettel wins, and over the radio he was very gracious in victory and dedicated his victory to the late great Professor Sid Watkins, which was a nice touch. I felt I gained a bit of respect for Vettel there. It's not that I don't like Sebastian Vettel. There are other drivers that I would actually prefer to win the World Championship. He's had it twice in the last 2 years. There are other drivers I prefer, I like better in the world of Formula 1. Hey, if he wins the championship, he wins the championship. But there are other drivers that I would prefer. Mark Webber came 10th, but because of a move he pulled on Sergio Perez, where all 4 of his wheels left the track, left the confines of the white lines of the track, he was demoted to 11th for not giving the place back. As a result, Sergio Perez got the 10th. So, on to the race results. First, as you've just heard, it was Sebastian Vettel for Red Bull, who quite frankly had the race in his pocket the moment Hamilton retired. Button's a very, very good driver, but Vettel seems to be Seems to be a master of this circuit. He's done very well the last 3 seasons here, and didn't I tell you that Red Bulls would be extremely good on this particular circuit? It's a street circuit, and you know they were always going to be a favourite to win. So I got a pick right, but it was for the race, not qualifying. In second place, Jenson Button for McLaren, putting his retirement in Monza behind him. He can't win the championship, but he's going to do absolutely everything in his power to take away points from Hamilton's rivals, and especially now considering that Hamilton retired yesterday, getting no points where Vettel and Alonso scored high. Speaking of the Ferrari number 1, he came third in a car that's quite frankly not fast enough at the moment. It may have something to do with the track, but Ferrari have admitted that they need to improve the car for Japan onwards. McLaren have basically been at the forefront in the last few races. They've won 3 out of the last 4. They've claimed pole position in 3 of the last 4. And quite frankly, Alonso is falling behind, and they need to address that. Picking up his best position ever in a Grand Prix was Force India's Paul di Resta. Fantastic result for Paul. That's 2 places better than his highest ever position. A great result for the team. Quite frankly, they're not going to get anything better than this. They're just not good enough. But it puts Paul di Resta out there for a decent drive in 2013 if the expected happens, if Michael Schumacher decides to retire and if Lewis Hamilton goes to Mercedes to replace him. If it does happen, then Paul di Resta's got to be favourite for a huge seat next year, just like Sergio Perez. Perez will go to either Ferrari, McLaren, and Perez will go to the other seat, I personally think. So we'll see what happens there. Nico Rosberg in the Mercedes 5th. Bit of a quiet weekend for Nico, just plodding along in the Mercedes. Not that the Mercedes does plod, but the mere fact that the Mercedes team has not been successful or had a decent success since Valencia, when Michael Schumacher got 3rd, just goes to show that they're nowhere near where they want to be. Getting a driver like Lewis Hamilton will no doubt push them, but I'll speak more about that in a few moments' time. Kimi Raikkonen 6th. Admittedly a track he's not very fond of, and when you don't like a track you don't do very well on it, regardless of how fast you are or how fast the car is. Romain Grosjean 7th. He had a decent first race back after his ban. You have to say that Grosjean looked good in qualifying. The mere fact that there's no overtaking at a circuit like this means, if you get stuck in a position, you will be stuck in that certain position. The same can't be said for the 8th place driver, Felipe Massa of Ferrari. Pretty decent race by Massa by all standards, judging by the mere fact that I think he picked up a puncture, on lap 1, and he came in and he was 23rd, I think. After the first few laps, and he worked his way up to 8th. Now, in terms of a race, that's a pretty good race, managing to get positions here or there through luck, fortune, or just decent strategy with the safety cars. But for a Ferrari number 2, he's just not doing what he needs to do. Yes, he's had a couple of decent races since the break. Since we come back from the break, but the mere fact he is a Ferrari number 2, the mere fact that Alonso and Ferrari need him to take points away from a Vettel, a Hamilton, a Button, a Webber, and he's just not doing that, means, I could see Massa leaving Ferrari, if not F1 in general. So he's got to pick it up. as have Ferrari, no doubt about it. But a decent 9th place finish for Daniel Ricciardo of Toro Rosso. Quite frankly, a Toro Rosso finishing in the points this season is a brilliant result for them. Not saying that they're alien to score points, but I still think that they've made a big mistake by getting rid of their old drivers, Alguersuari and the Swiss driver. I can't remember his bastard name at the moment. Hang on. Sebastian Buemi. I've just had to look that up. How terrible is that? They shouldn't have got rid of them. They'd be scoring more points. I have no doubt about that. But no, that was a decent night for Daniel Ricciardo. At one point, fighting with Mark Webber on the track, which was a good Australian battle. Ricciardo held his own for a few corners before the outright pace of the Red Bull just got him past. And 10th is Sergio Perez in the Sauber. Now, considering you can't pass on this track, also considering the fact that he had to go in for a new front wing, a point and 10th place is pretty good effort, I think. So not a bad race after Hamilton retired, really. Not the most exciting, I will freely admit that, because of the fact that there's no overtaking at a street circuit. But luckily we don't go to street circuits every other Grand Prix, so street circuit is sort of like a special occasion. So now on to the Drivers' Championship, and picking up another 3rd place and another podium finish is Ferrari's Fernando Alonso. He's up on 194. Sebastian Vettel now moves up to 2nd. He's on 165. Kimi Raikkonen is now 3rd on 149. Lewis Hamilton with a DNF stays on 142. Mark Webber, because of his pass where he went out on the outside of the track limits, scored 0, so he stays on 132. Jenson Button with a decent 2nd place, he's on 119. Nico Rosberg in 7th, he scored 10 points this weekend, he takes him up to 93. Romain Grosjean with a 6 points yesterday, he goes up to 82. Sergio Perez with just a single point yesterday, 66. And Felipe Massa is 10th on 51. You can forget everyone else downwards, because they are obviously outside of the top 10. On to the constructor standings. Red Bull are top, as you might expect, with 297. McLaren need to get some reliability. Hamilton didn't finish 2 races ago. Button didn't finish the last race. Hamilton didn't finish this race. And quite frankly, their reliability needs to improve. They're certainly fast enough, especially in the hands of Lewis Hamilton. But at this rate, they're going to let Red Bull win the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari finally move up to 3rd after yesterday. They're on 245. You've got to admire Alonso's drive. You have to admire his desire and his ability, quite frankly, considering that he's not in a car that is as competitive as his championship rivals, and he's dragging the team up by himself because, quite frankly, Felipe Massa isn't doing what he needs to do. Lotus in 4th, they're on 231. Mercedes in 5th on 136, so a huge difference between the top 4 and the rest of the field. Sauber on 101, they're in 6th. Force India with a decent day yesterday, they're on 75. Williams 8th, they didn't get any points yesterday, so they remain on 54. And Toro Rosso add to their points tally, they're now on 14 points. They remain in 9th with the 3 newer teams still to score. So what can we draw conclusions from this Grand Prix. What we can draw conclusions is the fact that Lewis Hamilton's championship hopes, unless we see a couple of DNFs from Alonso and or Vettel in the upcoming races, Lewis Hamilton's championship is practically dust. Which is a bit disappointing from a neutral fan's standpoint. We're going to see either Alonso or Vettel win this year's championship. We can draw conclusions that Mercedes obviously need to pull their socks up. Ferrari definitely need to pull their socks up if they're going to keep Alonso in the lead of the championship. We could also draw to the conclusion that street circuits just do not give us the action that we passing F1 fans crave. Yes, it's decent action. Yes, it's a brilliant spectacle, but street circuits, as far as excitement and action, passing action go, they're not very good at all. So I have to say that, if it's a street circuit or a tight, twisty track, we will see a Red Bull do well. It's just they're set up for high downforce tracks. They struggled a little bit in Monza and Spa, the Red Bull, considering that they are primarily set up for higher downforce tracks. Next time out at Japan, it's nowhere near as difficult to set up a car for a higher downforce. So we'll just have to see what happens. Eddie Jordan, according to Eddie Jordan, the futures of several F1 drivers for next year will probably begin to be decided in a couple of days' time, when Michael Schumacher has negotiations with Mercedes. The overall consensus is that Schumacher will retire. This will free up the second race seat at Mercedes. Whether or not that gets filled by Lewis Hamilton is a question that only Lewis can answer. It's all to do with money, as we say. We just don't know what's going to happen. But for the driver market to begin, Schumacher has to make a decision either here or there. If he decides to stay, then Lewis Hamilton basically has no choice but to stay with McLaren, which basically leaves us one big race seat open for 2013, because I cannot see Ferrari retaining Felipe Massa after his performances since his return in 2010. So that's about it for this edition of F1 Talk. I thank you very much for watching, as you do each and every time. The next edition will obviously be the preview of the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, and that'll be in a couple of weeks' time. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time for more F1 Talk.